Hey everyone, welcome to the demo of Fundsheet, where we quickly walk you through the app and explain what it does, how it works, etc. But you can always click the try free button on our website to try it out yourself. Now, what is Fundsheet? Fundsheet is essentially a tool for venture capital and private equity in order to centralize data. So for example, uploading your funds, your portfolio investments, setting up metrics for each portfolio company and automated reminders to collect it, uploading things like your cap table, custom fields, uploading files, adding notes by company, adding fund cash flows, so like investments, follow-on investments, realizations, your valuations, things like that. And once that data is all centralized in your system, there's a number of benefits. So number one, you get great reporting. So we'll go through some of these in a moment, but as you can see on your dashboard, you can already see some key informational points that all LPs and GPs should be across. Number two, because that data is all centralized, it means that it's always going to be the most up-to-date information. You're not going to have multiple versions of files on the software, on the server. You might have a cap table or 3 versions of the cap table. You don't know which one is which. You always know that this is the central source of data. And if someone does realize that information is out of date, for example, cap table needs updating, they're going to update it in the system and it's going to flow through to all of your reporting, right? Number three, that data is proprietary to you now. So, for example, if someone leaves your firm, you don't have critical know-how leaving with that person. And it also means that things don't fall between the cracks. So for example, if you've got, action notes for a particular portfolio company, it doesn't get lost. You can actually write your notes in the system. So let's get started with the demo and give you a very quick walkthrough. Again, we can provide a more detailed walkthrough on a one-on-one call with one of our sales team's members. Just reach out to us by clicking contact button on our menu. Now, what you're seeing here is the dashboard. It's a little bit of a snapshot of the key information that you should be looking for on a day-to-day basis of your fund, which is essentially how much have we invested, how much have we realized, what is it worth, and what are our key KPIs, so our multiple on invested cost, so MOIC, both gross and net, as well as our IRR, both gross and net as well. Now, a few callouts on this dashboard, and this is true for all reports in the system. So number one is all of our reporting is multi-fund. So what that means is you can actually, right now we're viewing all of our funds together, but you can actually drill down on a particular fund and it'll recalculate the investment, MOIC, IRR, etc. for that particular fund. The second thing is all of our reports, including the dashboard, is time-stamped, which means that you can actually go back in time and it'll recalculate everything. So it'll recalculate how much you've invested at that date, what was your IRR at that date. But it also means that you can track things over time, like how much we've invested, how much we've deployed over time, and how much that valuation has gone up over time as well. You can also see from these charts over here, you can see a time series of our multiple invested cost over time, both gross and net. And you can actually drill into just your gross or your net, and also your IRR over here, which is essentially your J-curve. Now you might be wondering, how do we actually calculate this and how do we know the difference between gross and net? Well, the difference is net is essentially after your fund expenses, so your management fees, your carry, and things like that, your fund expenses. So the reason we're able to calculate that is a few different things. So, and we'll go through each of these menu items shortly, but essentially we're actually able to track all of the transactional data in here. So basically we've got a general ledger, which is all your transactional data. So it's kind of your investments, your follow-ons, and even your fund expenses if you choose to upload them. The second question you might be asking is, can other people see this sensitive data? And the question is, you can use this however you want. So we've got this user function where you can actually add users. So for example, you could add your LPs and give them access to specific reports or specific companies. You could even add portfolio companies and give them access to their very specific portfolio company. So there's no risk at all that anyone that shouldn't be seeing certain data, seeing that data. It's all customizable, but we'll come back to that. So let's go through the kind of menu items one by one. So first of all, we've got our dashboard, which we've been through. We've also got reports, right? So we're continually adding new reports, but probably the two main ones to call out here is your tear sheet, which is like a deep dive into one particular portfolio company. And it'll have information from all other sections. So your cap table, your entry data, your metrics, and things like that. And then you've got your LP report, which is, and we'll come back to these and show you in a moment. But the LP report is more like, from an investor perspective, what's the key information that they want to see? So things like, how much have we deployed? how's our portfolio performing, what's our IRR, MOIC, and kind of key metrics like that, how much we deployed over time, what's it worth now, etc. Then we've got track record, which is just our portfolio companies and how they're performing. Fund KPIs, which is essentially kind of key metrics for the fund and how they're calculated. So that's reports. We'll come back to that in more detail. I just want to kind of show you the chronological order. Next, we've got our funds. So that, when you first set up with Fundsheet, the first thing that you want to do is actually set up each of your funds one by one. And this is where you'd actually do that. And you can add things like key terms, commitment amount, currency. You can even add extracts from your LPA or upload files, things like that. The next step would be to set up your companies and view them. So first step is to actually upload the data. And we've got some default fields in there for each company, which are all customizable. Like you can set up your own field or you can use ours by default. And then essentially you can view all your companies over here once they're set up. So the data collection module is essentially where you can actually set up custom metrics for each portfolio company and then set up automated reminders each month or each quarter and actually, send emails to portfolio companies. They'll log in and update the data. Next, we've got data tracker, which is essentially, a key problem that our VCs and PEs have is that, it's great that we've got our data set up in the system, but how do we quickly identify where it's missing? Where are the zeros? Where are the blank values? And that's where we can actually identify that through this data tracker tool. Next, we've got our cash flows, which is where for each of our portfolio companies that we've set up, actually tracking our investments, follow-on investments, and that's how you actually calculate your IRR, etc. So here we actually show that broken down by each of your portfolio companies and by fund, and also at the total level, and by broken down by unrealized, realized, partially realized investments. So how do we calculate those? Well, we need the transactional data, and that really comes from two places. We've got our ledger, which is our investments, etc., and follow-on investments and realizations, which feeds into the IRR calc. And then we've got our valuations as well, which is another key input, which is, how much is that portfolio actually worth? Okay, cool. So now that we've gone through the structure, let's do a deep dive of a few of these. I won't go through every single one. You can always ask questions in our one-on-one call by scheduling that. But essentially, let's go through this tear sheet. So again, this is, let's say you have a portfolio review meeting and you want to go through your portfolio companies. This is where you could actually bring that up on screen, select your portfolio company and the quarter. You can even export it as a PDF and send it around, or you can just bring it up on screen or on your mobile and actually talk to it. So you'll have things like, your business description, your thesis, your key events, and kind of entry data. When we first set up the portfolio company, what was the date? How much did we invest? How many board seats have we got? How do we source it? Who's the team lead, etc. All of this data is when you first set up the company. It would actually flow through to here. Now, all of these fields, as I mentioned, are customizable. So if you wanted to add in additional fields or delete these or reorder them, it's all customizable. You just do that from within the setup and then edit your fields. We've also got any file uploads that you've attached to that business. Also any cap table investments, and I'll show you that later, how that actually flows through. Any metrics, that comes from our data collection metrics section, which is where you set up custom metrics for each portfolio company. You can upload data, set up automated reminders for each company, and that the users, whether it's the portfolio company or your deal team, can add commentary, updates, key things like that. And also we've got charts linked to those custom metrics so you can view like your EBITDA, revenue, etc. Another key report is an LP report, and this is essentially again, you can drill into a particular fund, you can export this to PDF, and it's just things like your key performance, so key metrics, breakdown of portfolio performance by individual company, and then key charts that investors want to see, which is how's my investment doing, how's that trended over time, how much have you deployed, what's that worth, what's the bridge of our investments from invested to realized value, less expenses, and then some simple financial statements as well. Okay, so let's move on to funds real quick. So the first step, as I mentioned, when you first set up Fundsheet, is to set up your funds. Then the next logical step would be to actually add your portfolio companies thereafter. So the process for uploading funds. So first step is to go add fund, type in the key information. Again, we've set up some default fields in here, but feel free to customize it however you like. So we've got, for example, key LPA terms. You don't have to put this in, but it's a default starting position and you can delete it out if you don't want it there, or you can add your own. We've also got kind of key fund files, so you can add your own files, upload it, etc., and it'll be saved to the system. Now, if you want to go in and view your funds, you can actually go in there. We've got a section for that. I just want to run you through one other section. So you can actually group funds together. So if you want to create custom combinations of like SPVs, things like that, you can do that in here, and that'll appear as a drop down in the drop down menu for fund selectors. And we've also got LP commitments. So you can actually upload your investor register for each of your funds, and therefore you can actually track what your ownership percentage is for each of your funds, but also when you get to your LP reporting, you can actually show that from each investor's view, which is really useful from their perspective because they want to know what is my particular investment worth on a pro rata basis. So once you've set up